ever since I announced I'm leaving the family farm and going out on my own, I have been teasing my new planter. I showed my new tractor, I showed my sprayer, but finally, right here is my new, to me, John Deere 7300 12-row planter. I'm actually kind of surprised that none of you guys called me out on this yet, because it's been sitting out here in the yard since middle of July, and it has definitely accidentally ended up in the background of more than one video. And I kept expecting to see comments about the planter in the background, but no one ever called me out on it. I'm very surprised. So yeah, it looks like a normal John Deere 7300 Maxemerge 2 12-row planter. Fiberglass boxes. It's a mounted planter with lift assist. Nothing that fancy, right? Well, there's like four things. I'm gonna say four reasons why I picked this specific planter. Reason number one is I really wanted a planter that had some decent downforce. And not only decent downforce, but adjustable downforce. We have a lot of varying soil conditions here, and it's really nice to be able to adjust your downforce depending on where you are. So this planter has pneumatic downforce. So it has the airbags up here in the front, and then they're all tied together. And then up here, right behind the cab, we have an air compressor.
As a row unit travels across the ground, that ground is constantly pushing up on that unit. By adding the pneumatic airbag, we're able to counteract that and put force down into the ground. Not only does this help maintain a consistent depth, but it can also help make a bit firmer seed trench like what you see in the left, which can help your seed placement by putting it on the bottom of the trench rather than getting stuck on the side. And it can also help prevent things like air pockets from forming around the seed. And that's why it's so important.
Now over the years, there's been many different kinds of downforce. This right here, my 4-row planter, is a really basic example of downforce. It's just a few springs that go between the two parallel arms and provide some extra downforce. I believe this is actually a heavy duty kit because it has 2 springs per side. So really simple, really cost effective, but no adjustability. The next step up in downforce is like on my dad's 1530 soybean drill here, you have the front mounted spring downforce units. Now these work pretty good. You have a couple different adjustments here, so you can adjust the pressure that's put on these springs to adjust the pressure that's being put down on these units. Nothing wrong with these, they actually work pretty good. But a couple things. First of all, you don't have unlimited variability. You only have a few different adjustments that you can make, and when you want to make the adjustments, you have to stop and you have to go and you have to adjust every single row. And then the next step up from that is what I have here with my pneumatic airbags on each row. Some of the newer pneumatic downforce systems actually have a load sensor in the planter, and then it'll adjust the air compressor on the go automatically depending on what you set your downforce poundage to be. I'm not quite that fancy, I'm just manual, but back when I used to run that 1631 row soybean planter, we just had manual downforce on that, pneumatic, and it worked really well. So the downforce was the first major reason I bought this planter, because in our soil conditions, I'm just not gonna run my main planter without some sort of good adjustable downforce. Now, the second reason I bought this planter is for the row cleaners. Now, something that I've heard from multiple farmers around our area is that over the past few years, since our corn varieties have gotten so much better and we're yielding so much more than we used to, the stalks are a lot stronger, a lot more resistant to wind, a lot more resistant to diseases, which is all fantastic. The problem is that it seems like a lot of these newer stalks and corn material takes a lot longer to decay and decompose than it used to back in the day. So let's say I'm planting soybeans in a field that was previously corn. Even though we ripped that field and then field cultivated it, there's still a lot of corn residue left on top of the ground. And that is where these come in. Once again, maybe not in every area in the world, but in our area, having row cleaners is dang near a must. They just take that corn residue or soybean residue or big clumps of dirt, and they help push it out of the way so that way your planter has a nice soft seed bed to lay that seed into. Without row cleaners, your seed discs are probably just not going to get the penetration that they need to maintain a consistent seed depth. And if you don't have consistent seed depth, you don't have consistent emergence, and that is a direct correlation to lower yields. So in the past, on the 24-row planter that I've had on the channel here the past couple years, we had pneumatic row cleaners, which were really nice because I could adjust them in the cab. However, they had a couple flaws. The first being that since they were on an airbag, when I hit a big clump of dirt or something, they would bounce way up in the air, and then they would take forever to come back down, which would lead a unit going 20 to 50 foot without any sort of row cleaner in the front cleaning, and then we would have a small area of inconsistent emergence. And that was a pretty major issue. These are not quite as nice. They're not, adjustable from in the cab. I got to come out here, lift up this handle, and then spin it up or down if I want to adjust it. But the benefit is that since they're solid mounted to the unit, whatever comes in the path of these row cleaners is either one, going to move out of the way, or two, break something. And I'm hoping that going from a 60-foot planter to a 30-foot planter, I'll be able to see what's in front of me a lot easier and not hit as much stuff. So I'm not too worried about the braking part, but being solid mounted to the unit and then being able to push any dirt clods or stuff out of the way right in front of the unit without moving is actually going to be a benefit in my eyes. And what's kind of nice about these row cleaners is that they're kind of a set it and forget it type of deal. You get out to the field, in the first couple rounds, you set these the way you want to, but once you have them set in that field, you just kind of leave them, and then you set them when you get to the next field. So, is it going to take longer to set than the pneumatic ones? Yes, but I don't need to have a tool. I can just do this with my hands. Just get up here, spin it, put it back down, and I'm on my way. The third major reason I bought this specific planter is for the row closing system. These are not John Deere row closing systems. These are, I believe, a Shoop Case IH copycat row closing system. So back to my 4-row again. This has been the standard closing system for John Deere since, well, basically the early 70s when this planter was made. And it's just 2 discs with like rubber ends on them here that squish together in a V shape, that row trench, and then close it up. And it's still the basic system that's being put on John Deere planters today. But Case IH took a slightly different approach to their closing system. They decided that rather than the 2 V discs pushing in from opposite sides and trying to close that trench, they were going to use discs to actually fold the dirt on top and then a packing wheel in the back to pack it down a little bit. And I think that this system just helps to get a little bit better soil to seed contact and help with that early emergence. So we have a couple of neighbors that run Case IH planters, and it seems like in the early spring, right when that corn starts to emerge, we drive by our fields and we feel pretty good, and then we would drive by their fields and their field would look absolutely perfect, just absolutely perfect emergence. And I think it comes down to the closing system. And actually, when I brought this planter home, when my dad and my brother first saw that I had this style closing system on it, they were pretty excited because they've been thinking about testing it out for years, but it's just a pretty big investment to do, so they've never pulled the trigger. So I'm kind of the guinea pig, not only for myself, but for them. If it works really good for me, they might look at upgrading theirs to this style in the future. Now, they have it set so both the discs are side by side. Most Case IH planters are offset a little bit, so it looks like if I just take out these 2 bolts, I can slide one disc back and have them offset a little bit. The previous owner also told me that sometimes these do such a good job at folding over the dirt, they would actually just remove one of the discs. And the last main reason I bought this planter is because the previous owner rebuilt all the parallel arms. Now, these parallel arms are notorious for getting really sloppy because John Deere never put a bushing in them. It's just a hole, and a bolt. And what would happen is you could take these units, you can lift them up. If you can lift them up and then shake them, you can feel how much slop is in them. Now, when I lift up these units and give them a shake, there is basically zero slop in that unit, which is just really important for reducing vibrations all the way around and making sure that everything works properly. A couple of years ago, back when I was farming with my dad and my brother, and we bought that 24-row Maxemerge planter, we spent a lot of time, money, and effort rebuilding their parallel arms for this reason. And a lot of these old planters, people don't replace or rebuild the parallel arms on them. So when I saw that this one had rebuilt parallel arms on them, and they had the bushings installed, and that was something that I didn't have to spend time or money or effort on, I was pretty excited. So maybe thinking to yourself right now, Carson, like, you have all these upgrades on this old planter. What does something like this cost you? Well, he had it listed for $7,500, and I got him talked down to $6,500. And that's why I drove out to Wisconsin for this planter. Being in southwest Minnesota, it made sense for me to just go buy a planter from around here because there's a lot of them. And actually, this is a vacuum planter. I really wanted a finger pickup planter because personally, I think that finger pickup planters, especially in corn, are the most accurate planters. However, everybody around here wanted tons of money for their wore out finger pickup planters with none of these upgrades. No row cleaners, no downforce, no rebuilt parallel arms, and just a standard John Deere closing system. I mean, people are asking $8 to $9 grand for their 6 and 8 row finger pickup planters with no add-ons. I paid $6,500 for this, and it has everything that I want on it. So I called the guy up, and then I took my girlfriend out to vacation in Wisconsin Dells and just happened to bring the 1-ton pickup and a 30-foot flatbed with me. We took a morning off from vacation, went and looked at the planter, bought it on the spot, picked it up, and drove it home. Now, what's really crazy about this is even though I picked it up like an hour north of Wisconsin Dells, it actually came from Algona, Iowa, from Ernie Williams Ltd. Now, this Ernie Williams dealership used to be my local dealership back in the day. They have since been bought out by Casey Nielsen, and now that's who I primarily deal with. But it's cool to see that this planter came from not that far away. And for those of you who are OG viewers, people who have been watching the channel for a long time, you are very well aware that I never buy anything and then just leave it the way it is. I always work on it. I always have upgrades for it. And of course, this planter is no different. So yeah, we're gonna take the rest of this video today and start taking this planter apart, and I'm gonna show you some of the upgrades I got for it. To start out with, yes, it has the fiberglass boxes, which these boxes are actually in pretty good condition. I can rub my hands up and down the side of the fiberglass. I know a lot of you guys are cringing right now, but no, they're actually in good condition. I'm not getting any fiberglass splinters doing that. So I don't remember what year it was, but I think it was in either 89 or 91, John Deere upgraded their Maxemerge 2 planters to a different meter and box style. So the older version, which is what I have, had these dual slot meters. So there's a hole in the back and the front, and the seed feeds in from both sides. Now, this system was designed to run low hydraulic flow requirements because the tractors back in the day, the John Deere SoundGuard tractors, to be honest, kind of had disappointing hydraulics on board. So these meters were designed to run the standard corn disc. Now, the nice thing about this disc was that it had really low vacuum requirements. So a lot of these older tractors could run them just fine. However, these were not known for exactly being the most accurate seed discs around, especially for corn. The soybean ones, the standard soybean discs, they're fine. No one ever really had a problem with them, but the standard corn discs, you know, they had their issues. Now later on came the John Deere ProMax 40C disc, which honestly, if I was to spend a bunch of money, I could probably upgrade these boxes to run. And then also along the line somewhere came the Precision ESET seed discs and meters. But then one night late, I was scrolling through Facebook Marketplace like I do every night before I go to bed, and I found somebody kind of close to me up at Redwood Falls, Minnesota, that was selling 12 John Deere poly boxes with Precision ESET meters and the Precision ESET corn discs for $100 a row. So I messaged him, and then the next day I went up and I bought all 12. So I have 12 of these poly boxes with the Precision ESET meters. So my current plan is to use the fiberglass boxes for soybeans because they can run the soybean meters just fine. And I also got with these boxes, oh come on, well that's a first. This thing like super glued on, there we go. Along with these fiberglass boxes, I also got hopper extensions. So they're in the back here, but they extend the boxes up to about here. You can put more seed in them. And for high population crops like soybeans, is actually going to be really, really helpful. However, John Deere had to take one extra step to make this really hard transition because they designed their poly boxes with a much larger hook in the front than their fiberglass boxes. So if I were to install this poly box onto my unit, it's not going to clip on here worth a dang, and it's going to sit here and be loose. So either I have to upgrade to the larger mount up here and use the poly boxes, or keep the small mount and use the fiberglass boxes. But I have an idea. I think I can 3D print a bracket that I drill a couple holes through the poly here and I bolt on that will allow me to use the poly boxes and then transition it or make it into one of these smaller hook styles. So that way I can still use the poly boxes on my older mounting system. So you'll notice here that there's a couple of boxes missing from my planter. And the reason is that I currently got them at home at my apartment because I'm in the stages of designing this system. So that way I can interchange the boxes without having to actually change anything physically on the planter. And the second thing that I am thinking about doing, and there's a strong possibility that it will happen, but I'm not going to guarantee it, is I have a really good friend who is an engineer for a large agricultural company. I'm not going to say which one, but I was talking to him and we might design a custom electric drive setup for this planter. So we're thinking buying motors and parts and stuff off of like Amazon.com, having a couple $100 per row invested, and being able to have individual electric drive for each row. And then we're also talking about making a custom monitor for the tractor, so that way I can monitor my population, my skips, my doubles, and be able to adjust my population and stuff on the fly. So if that is something you guys would like to see, make sure you get subscribed, leave a like on this video, and also leave a comment down below. Let me know that that's something you want to see. Now, like I said, it's not a guarantee, but it's something I'm going to work really, really hard to get done here this winter or before this next spring. So if that's something you guys really, really do want to see, let me know down below. That way, you know, if I see a lot of people that want to see us make a custom electric drive setup going around all the big guys that cost a lot of money, if I see a bunch of comments that say that, I'm going to work even harder to make sure it gets done. If I don't see many comments about it, I'm going to put it kind of lower on the priority list. Now, I haven't been keeping track, but I've probably been talking about this thing for like a half hour so far. So let's finally start taking stuff apart and seeing if there's anything that actually needs to be replaced down low here on the unit itself. One of the beautiful, beautiful things about John Deere planters is that when they designed and built the 7000 to 7100 planters back in the 70s, they did such a good job that they've kept their basic planter design all the way through today. So on the basic unit itself, once you've worked on one John Deere planter, you've basically worked on them all. And it just, you know, even though this is my first time ever touching a Maxemerge 2 planter, it's just like riding a bike. I feel like I've done this 100 times. So the first thing I want to look at with this planter is the seed discs. I want to make sure that they are still within spec. If not, I'll have to order new ones. I think these ones are, just from the quick glance at them, but I'm going to take off this dust cover quick and actually take it out and measure from the backside correctly. It appears that even the nut's the exact same size as the new ones are. Okay, so take this off. Don't want to lose that washer. Okay, I need to measure the backside all the way across here. Diameter, that's what it's called. Now, if I remember correctly, from the factory, they're supposed to be about 15 inches. And I think 14 and a half is the absolute bare minimum you ever want to run these things. So if I'm between there, I should be fine. And I am at a little bit above 14 and a half. I might take this disc into my John Deere dealer and just see what he says. So I got back from lunch here. I took my disc to the John Deere dealership, and I said I'm about an 1/8 inch over 14 and a half inches. I said I got 220 acres of corn, or 220 acres this year. What do you think I should do? And they said, just run them one more year, worry about it next year. For the amount of acres you got, you'll be fine at a little bit above 14 and a half acres. They said that the discs wear about 1/8 of an inch for every 1,000 acres that you plant. Now, obviously, that's just kind of like a rule of thumb. It's going to depend greatly if you have a 12, 16, or 24-year-old planter or whatever, because obviously, the smaller the planter you got, the more wear there is per acre. But I'm going to put these back on. I also stole a couple of business cards from our parts guy so I can shim up the disc correctly. And then, I don't know if you guys have noticed this, probably not because I haven't shown it, but I also got these Schaeffert Manufacturing rebounders on here. Now, I've never really even heard of these things, so I called up Schaeffert's and I talked to Paul, the owner, and I sent him a picture of these, and he said, yeah, they said they'll probably last one more year, and he was kind of telling me about how they help direct the seed down to the bottom of the trench without scraping the bottom. So that was the problem we had with seed farmers way back in the day, is it would scrape the bottom and collect with mud and drag seeds over the place. He says these will not do that. So I'm going to try these out. And then he was talking to me about some other stuff, and my YouTube channel came up, and he said, you know, I'd love to send you a few different things for you to try if you want to show them in the videos. I said, absolutely. So they call it a chicken tracker wheel. So it's 4 inches wide rather than 6 inches wide. And he says that really helps to get rid of air pockets in soil. So he's going to send me a couple of those. And then I think they have like a different closing system that's very similar. They're going to send me one of those. So we're going to have a few rows of experiments on this planter here come this next year. That'll be really excited to show you guys. Okay, I'm pretty sure that the torque to put these discs back on is 90 foot-pounds. That's what it was, I believe, on the Maxemerge. However, this is a different planter, so I'm going to double check. I can't see, I don't see a torque section in the manual. There's a crime prevention tips section. Let's go to that section. I want to see what I can do to prevent crime. Oh, heck yeah, we got all sorts of crime prevention tips here. Record identification numbers. Actually, that's actually a pretty good idea. Keep proof of ownership. That's a pretty good idea. Park indoors out of sight. Make machines hard to move. When parking outdoors, make sure machines are parked in a well-lighted, fenced area. Lower all equipment to the ground. Remove the ignition key. Participate in a neighborhood watch program. I'm not joking. It actually says participate in a neighborhood watch program right here in the back of my manual. Thanks, John Deere. So I found a torque chart in there, but it says that if the nut is a 24 millimeter or 5/16 inch wrench, it says to use 170 foot-pounds, which I know is incorrect for these seed discs. So I'm just going to go with the 90 that the Maxemerge was, because it looks like it's all the same. Oh, maybe this is yes, 90 foot-pounds. My parts manager, or service manager, just confirmed that with me. So now some of these are reverse threaded, so you need a reversing. Oh my goodness. You need a reversing torque wrench, one that clicks both directions. I use this DeWalt one. I bought it last year and I really like it. I'll leave a link for it down in the description in case you need one. I was trying to figure out why this one wouldn't click. Threads are shot on it. That would probably be why it was loose when I took it off too. Are the threads shot on the bolt themselves, I wonder? No, the threads on, okay, I just need another I just need another nut. Well, it is Friday afternoon and John Deere isn't open over the weekend, so I ran and got some new nuts quickly. So let's take these old beat up ones out of here, the ones that don't have any threads left. I'm guessing that whoever did this before me used an impact and ruined all the threads, because so far I've taken off 2 nuts and both the threads are ruined. But the bolts still look good, so theoretically I can put these new ones on. Oh, that feels so much better already. And now my torque wrench should actually click, because I have threads. Okay. Ah, yes! So I got it tightened up. I did my little business card test where you put them together and you want them to be about 1.5 to 1.75 inches apart. And they are. I tested it in multiple spots around the disc. So you spin them and then you do it again, and you spin them a little bit and do it again. And it was actually pretty straight for used discs. That's pretty impressive. Okay, it's the next day, and I completely forgot yesterday that I had scrapers to install, because this planter came from an area in Wisconsin which was heavily irrigated. So that leads me to believe that it was drier land, and typically in drier land you don't need scrapers because the ground's so dusty nothing sticks to the discs. Where I'm from, when the ground is moist, it's really, really sticky, so you need these scrapers so that way you don't have anything sticking to these discs. Now, the problem with this is that even though I'm using the cheap scrapers, and I bought them aftermarket, so I paid like $7.25 a piece, the entire planter, I mean, that's like $170 worth of scrapers, which isn't that bad. But if I replace the discs next year, I'm gonna have to replace the scrapers again, because the scrapers kind of contour to the shape of the disc, and you can see the scraper sticks out past the end of the disc here. So if I was put on new discs next year, I would also need to buy new scrapers because the scraper would not fit the shape of the disc. And I'm just starting to think it'd probably make more economical sense for me to replace the discs this year, so that way I'm not spending an extra $170 next year on new scrapers again. So hear me out. Last year, I put on new discs on the 24-row planter that I was using with my dad and my brother, and I installed wear parts seat opening discs. And I came out and I said that I didn't like them. For the extra money, they were not worth it, and I was very disappointed in the quality. Now, Wear Parts did reach out to me after that video, and they said they investigated the shipment of discs that I got, and they said that they had an employee that was not following protocol and was putting discs that did not meet the specifications to be able to sell on good pallets instead of bad pallets. And I actually got a pallet that had a fair number of defective discs on it. So, and they did apologize. They said they'd love to work for me in the future again. So here's what I'm thinking. I'm thinking maybe let's give Wear Parts a second chance, and let's have Wear Parts send me half a planter worth of opening discs, and then I will buy the other half of opening discs either through John Deere or Shoop or somebody else. And let's do an install comparison to see if Wear Parts discs are truly better than Deere or Shoop or aftermarket, and if they wear better. So not only are the tolerances better, but they wear better. I think that'd be a pretty cool video. And then I can install all new discs, and then I'll have to worry about installing discs next year and buying a second set of scrapers for next year as well. So I don't really want to go much further into the planter because I got to order parts for it anyways, which that's why I do this in December or early January. I think today's like the 28th or something of December, because I have time to make decisions like this. I'm not out here the day before planting trying to figure this all out. So I think that's what we're going to do. We're going to see if we can get some new discs for it. And then obviously, like I said earlier, if you want to see us put an electric drive or attempt to put an electric drive set up on this planter, custom built, really cheap, leave a comment down below, and I'll see you guys in the next one.